Hi everyone, welcome to Tales of Dread. I hope you are having an awesome day. With these 3 stories, I know it's about to get even better. Next. Wait until you hear about what hikers and people in Oregon saw. I can now tell you. It's not what you think, and then they go to the Great Smoky Mountains in Ohio where they have more mind-blowing experiences. But first, if you watch the channel regularly but haven't subscribed yet, I'd love it if you do that right now. It helps me more than a cold drink on a hot day. Great. Let's move on to the next set of stories. Here are the facts about a possible cryptid that a witness saw in the woods near La Grande, Oregon. I had never been to these woods before, so I didn't know the area. I was out visiting and hiking with a friend, and we were trying to find a trail that she had seen on a map, but we weren't having much luck and were getting a little frustrated. We had been in the woods for about an hour and a half, but we hadn't found what we were looking for. We were about to head back to the car. Even the sun was starting to go down because it was getting late. At this point, we were walking along a creek bed and trying to figure out how to get out of the woods because we had gotten pretty lost. We were walking along the edge of the creek when I saw something dark under some trees about 50 feet away. I told my friend to stop talking so I could listen and find out what was going on. I also looked through my binoculars, and all I could see was a big mass of black. I couldn't see any features or details, so I didn't know if I was looking at an animal, a pile of brush, or even a person. I told her I was going to check it out, and she came with me. I think she was more worried about being left alone than about getting close to it. But as we got closer, I could see that it looked like it had a small head and long arms sticking out of it. I didn't want to scare it and put our safety in danger. So I whispered to my friend to be quiet and to be careful because I thought it was a person. I told her we shouldn't make any noise and should just keep walking past it as if it wasn't there. So we kept going. But as we got closer, I could see more and more that it wasn't a person. At this point, it was a big black mass that was alive but not a person. It took all my strength not to run away out of fear. I could walk slowly past it. But when we were about 20 feet past it, I couldn't stop myself anymore, so I started to run. About 100 yards away, we ran. But then I stopped, turned around, and looked. The thing was now standing on 2 legs, facing us, and looking right at us. It was about 7 feet tall and skinny, which was strange because it looked so big from the ground. It did have a small head and long arms that reached down to its knees. And there were dark brown hairs all over it. It didn't move. It just stood there and looked at us. I felt afraid. But now I had an overwhelming desire to see it in person. I wanted to see what it looked like up close. For some reason, I almost felt like I couldn't stop these urges. It was clear that my friend was scared. She didn't want to go back with me, but I begged her to, and she did. We walked slowly back towards it, and as we got closer, I could see details of something I had never seen before in my life. I looked it right in the eyes, and it looked back at me with these strange, long, protruding eyes that made it look like it didn't move a muscle. It just stood there and looked at me, not my friend. I felt like I was going into a trance as it happened. I couldn't stop looking, and it made me feel very weird. I had the feeling that this thing was trying to talk to me, but I didn't know what it was saying. It then reached out to me with one of its big hands. Its fingers were long and twig-like, but they were bent in an odd way and moved in a way that made me think it wanted me to come closer, but not take its hand. I didn't because I was afraid and didn't know what was going on. I couldn't get back to myself, and now I wanted to run away, but I couldn't move. I think it was too scared to run away, and I was trying to figure out what was going on, but I couldn't. It was like my mind was telling me this wasn't real, but my eyes were telling me it was. I was confused. I've never felt so confused in my life, and I really thought I was looking at an alien. I don't know how long I stood there, but the trees and the sky were spinning. I felt like the world was going around me. Then I thought I could just pinch myself to make sure I was awake, and that did the trick. Then, I did. I had to start running because it was the only thing I could do to help myself. I ran past my friend like a crazy person and yelled, "We have to get out of here." I have no idea if she even heard me. I was yelling so loudly in my head, but it didn't sound like my voice was coming out of my mouth. I don't even know if I was running in the right direction because I didn't know what was going on. I felt like I was going to pass out. I felt like I was running for my life. I felt like I was going to die. As fast as I could, I ran. I didn't care where I ran, I just didn't want to be where I was. I finally got back to our car by some miracle, and I jumped in. My friend was right behind me, and she was screaming and crying. She jumped into the car, and we drove home as fast as we could. We didn't talk to each other at all. I think we couldn't say anything because we were still in shock and scared. It was the most scary thing that has ever happened to me. What happened to me is still a mystery. I think I saw an alien or something that doesn't belong in this world. I think it was trying to tell me something, but I don't know what. I will never forget what that thing looked like that day. Even as I write this, my heart is racing, and I can't tell you how happy I am to have found you, Lilith, and this whole community. You have all given me so much hope that I will get through this. I live in Ohio, close to Columbus. But the place I'm talking about and where this happened is way down in southeastern Ohio, near where the Muskingum River and Route 60 meet, kind of north of Marietta. When I heard one of your stories about a skinwalker, it reminded me of something that happened to me a long time ago. I also wondered if you knew anything else about skinwalkers that you could tell me. I don't remember the year, but it was probably about 10 years ago. I was working for the state at the time and was sent to the area as part of a road crew to work on the road. I was just in charge of the flag, and I remember that standing there in the hot sun for hours was as hot as hell. So, one night, I was cleaning up at the end of the day so everyone could go home. Everyone else was already in their cars, but I saw a couple of beer cans on the side of the road. So I walked over to pick them up and threw them in the truck to get them out of the area. I had just put them in after picking them up. I was standing next to the truck and thinking about what I would eat when I got home when I saw something that looked like a man come out of the woods across the highway. I say that because it sort of looked like a person. I was walking across the road far behind all of our cars. It didn't hold its body like a human would, and it was too far away to see clearly, but it didn't look like it had fur or feathers. Its body looked like a naked person, but its skin was pale gray and its head was too big for the body. When I looked at it, it seemed to be coming towards us for a moment, but when it saw me looking, it turned to the left and went down the slope toward the river. The strange thing about this is that I realized at that point that I hadn't seen anything else that day, which means I hadn't seen any animals move. There were no animals, no birds, nothing that moved. Well, I had seen a fox earlier in the day, but that was it. I remember how strange it felt to realize that the area seemed so lonely and empty, but I knew for sure that I had seen something come out of the woods, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I know it wasn't a bear because it was too skinny and had no fur. In fact, it was made of nothing but that pale gray skin. I started to think I was just tired from the day and the heat, but it seemed so real to me again. I thought it might be a person, But it didn't move like a person. Instead, it moved more like a monkey or a big cat. When it turned and went down the embankment into the river, it looked like it wasn't even touching the ground, like it was gliding. I finally just shook my head, got in the car, and rode back to the station with the rest of the crew, but I never told them about it that day. So, I just sat there and thought. But the next day at work, I did ask if anyone else had seen or felt anything strange. No one had, so I decided to forget about it. I did, but only for a year. When I went back to work the next spring for the summer, I found out two important things had happened that caught my attention. The first thing was that there had been a dead deer in the same spot where I had seen the weird creature thing the summer before. Now, keep in mind that I still hadn't told anyone what I saw. So I was the only one who knew about this strange thing. Now I know it's not unusual to see a dead deer on the side of the road. But what was strange was that when the Game Commission picked it up from the side of the road, they told us off the record that it had been strangled, not hit by a car. They did this so we would be extra careful when we were out there. They said that the way its neck was turned told them something about it. Not sure, but one thing is for sure, it was strangled. I don't know if that thing that looked like a human had anything to do with it, but the memory of seeing it came back to me like it was yesterday. The second thing I learned that was important and really upset me. It was because two kids from the area had gone missing. They were in their teens and had left their homes. The next morning, their parents found their beds made, but no one had seen them leave. Now, a few days later, the kids were found, but they were huddled together in the same spot off the road where I had seen the creature and where they had found the dead deer. When the kids were found, they were very thirsty and had no idea where they were. They didn't seem to know where they were, and they were mumbling about being taken from their homes and put there. But I only ever heard about that. The facts about that. I didn't do anything about that story. Just that they were found made me happy. So, I've tried to figure out what I saw over the years. I just couldn't keep it inside. I've asked a lot of people if they've ever seen anything like what I told them, but no one seems to know what it was. It was definitely the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. I've always thought that when I saw it the first time, it might have been looking for a place to bring people, like how the kids disappeared and then turned up there. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't know how else to explain it. My mind keeps linking the thing I saw with the kids and the dead deer, but I don't know why. Now, I've read about it, and now I'm wondering if it was a skinwalker or if someone else can help me figure out what's going on. In any case, I've never seen anything like it. I've never written any of this before, so I hope it all makes sense. But I like your stories. So I thought I'd give you a chance to help me with this in case you find any information that can help me make sense of everything. Lilith, thank you. I've been doing a lot of research on this topic, and it seems like a lot of people have had encounters with, well, something. I recently had a similar experience, but I haven't been able to find any solid evidence that proves what it was, but I'm still pretty obsessed with trying to figure it all out. I'm not sure it's aliens or cryptids, but I'm also not sure it's people trying to trick people, which is what a lot of people think it is. Anyway, the other stories I've read were about people who were out in nature and saw something they couldn't explain. I had the same thing happen to me. I was in the Smoky Mountains at a campground. I was sitting by a creek and enjoying the breeze coming off the mountains as I watched the sun go down. I had to be about 30 yards from the nearest trees at that point. My girlfriend was beside me and was asleep on a blanket. We were sleeping on the ground. I was about to wake her up so we could go back when I saw something move behind one of the trees. The movement happened very quickly, and it was scary because it didn't seem natural. When I turned around and looked at my girlfriend, I saw that she was still very asleep. So I turned around and looked back at the movement, and there it was again. But this time, it went from tree to tree in a straight line. It moved very quickly and was very different from a branch swaying in the wind or anything else. It was also very tall. As I watched it, I could see that it had something that looked like a head, but it was pointing down toward the ground. I took a picture of it as it moved, but it was too dark to tell what it was, so it just looks like a bunch of trees. But when I took the picture, I thought I was looking at a really big monkey or an ape or something like that. But then it was gone as quickly as it had come. I had nothing else to do with this thing except for these few minutes. After that, that's about all I can tell you. It didn't really go anywhere. Just now, I woke up my girlfriend and we went back to our tent for the night. The rest of our trip went exactly as planned. So I hope you'll find this interesting enough to post.